Good evening, non-existent viewers. It's TVB, and I'm picking up kind of like where I left off. I started out this year with my top 9 best movies of the year list, my top 5 worst movies of the 2022 list, and my 9 most anticipated films 2023 list. I'm gonna pick up on my little spree of like top 9/top 5 videos for the next few days. And this isn't just a video, this is another video I plan on making very soon. Are not just videos I've been putting off like this January, because I was hoping to make these videos sooner, like a few weeks ago, but I just, like, back when the year started, but I didn't really get around to doing it. These are videos I've been putting off for years now, because I remember doing a whole Would You Rather Wednesday post back in like summer of 2020, like when everyone had to stay inside that summer because of COVID without the vaccines. And I asked you guys, like, what top 9/5 videos would you like me to make? And all you guys voted yes, like mostly voted yes for this, who've been subscribed to my channel for that long. And here you guys have it. These are gonna be my like hot takes, my unpopular opinions on these 9 movies, and if I get a lot of dislikes and hate comments, I wouldn't be surprised. But here it is. These are the top 9 movies that I dislike that everyone loves. Now, before anyone crucifies me in the comments, please understand that this is purely my opinion. Film is subjective. It's all like a matter of personal taste. Like, there's no need to feel attacked by this video if you're in the popular opinion that if you're of the many people who actually like these movies. Great. There's nothing wrong with liking or loving a movie. It's just these are the films that are generally very well received that I just couldn't really get into personally, that I just find really overrated. I don't even like hate any of the movies on my list. These are just the films that I watch them and I'm just like, I don't get it. But if you do get it, awesome. As long as you're having fun with in the privacy of your own home or at the movie theaters, awesome for you. With that being said, let's jump into my list. Kicking off my list at my number 9 spot, I feel kind of bad for putting Licorice Pizza on my list because it's not a film I had a chance to probably review when it came out back in 2021, and it's not a bad movie necessarily. It's just when I saw it in theaters, I saw that it got so many Oscar nominations, and I went to see it like February of last year, if my memory is correct, and I walked out of the theater being like, I don't get it. I truly don't get what's so like Oscar worthy about this film. Like, yeah, comedies being up for that many awards, like when the Oscar season rolls around, that is a rare occurrence. That's why I got excited going into this film, but I walked away just feeling like I don't get why everyone's raving for this movie so much. Like, I can't even remember a single character name in this film, and I feel like it wasted its R rating. This movie's rated R, has a lot of F words, but it didn't take anything further. I'm not saying that R-rated comedies need to be super reliant on its R-rating to make me laugh, but I feel like this film could have been better if it sort of like dove into that further. None of the performances really stood out to me. The writing didn't really stand out for me. Like, there's nothing super memorable for me about Licorice Pizza, except that one scene where that one Jewish kid doesn't want to pray with his family because he became an atheist. I was raised in an area that was predominantly Jewish, and I've seen other Jewish kids I've befriended over the years go through a similar transition phase like that, where they leave Judaism for atheism. I could relate to that, and the performances, they were decent, but this film, in all honesty, just got boring, and nothing really struck me as hilarious about it. So, because it's a comedy, so it's supposed to make me laugh. I didn't laugh while watching this movie, so therefore, Licorice Pizza kind of earned a spot on my list. Number 8! Okay, my number 8 spot. The main reason why Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince earned a spot on my list is because I haven't watched this movie in years. This film came out back in, I believe it was 2009, if my memory is correct. Yeah, I would probably like this movie a lot more if I watched it again as an adult. And now that I've listened, I didn't read all the Harry Potter books. I listened to audiobooks for all the Harry Potter series last year while strip mining in Minecraft. So now that I'm more familiar with the books and what it's based on, I probably would like the Half-Blood Prince if I watch it again now as an adult. Heck, that might be the case with a lot of movies on my list. I would probably appreciate these films more if I just give it a second watch. But Half-Blood Prince, for me, as a kid when it came out, this is actually the first Harry Potter film that I remember seeing in theaters with my mom and my sister. Yeah, I walked out being like, okay, this is in the darker second half of the Harry Potter franchise. The first half, it's from Philosopher's Stone to Goblet of Fire, it's it's a PG, light and happy and funny, half of the Harry Potter series. But then the Order of the Phoenix to Deathly Hallows, that's when it gets darker and grittier, more action packed. Yeah, the Half-Blood Prince, it was darker, but there wasn't enough like action scenes to really back up that grittiness, that darker approach. And as a kid, like, the lack of action with Harry and Dumbledore, yeah, that last scene by the ocean was pretty cool. But yeah, this film, as a kid, me, it was really boring. I would probably like this movie more again if I watched it again as an adult, but it's still my least favorite of all the Harry Potter films. Number 7, my spot for this goes to Teen Titans Go to the movies. I have not watched a single episode of the cartoon that this movie is based on. I've heard everything from I've seen bits and pieces of Teen Titans Go on Cartoon Network. So I mean, I probably, and when I reviewed this movie when it came out back in 2018, someone even commented on my video like, "Hey, since you're seeing this as a movie, not a movie based on a TV show, I can see why it didn't work for you that well." Well, I probably would like this movie more if I watched the cartoon, on Cartoon Network, but even then I refuse to do so because I've heard so many bad things about it. So when I got a film adaptation, I couldn't help ask myself, why is it getting a film adaptation? And when I saw the movie in theaters, when I walked out of the theater, I was like, why are people giving this film as much praise that it receives, even though the show that's based on is so notorious on Cartoon Network? Because the original Teen Titans series back in 2000, the early 2000s, is one of my favorite animated shows of all time. My sister and I, we watched that show religiously when we were kids, and I need to buy that on DVD whenever I get a chance. But yeah, I haven't watched the Teen Titans Go series, and thus the film just didn't work for me. I didn't appreciate the writing or the cringy dialogue, and it's a musical, and musical numbers didn't really land for me, and just overall it was just a big bleh. Number 6, similar case with Half-Blood Prince. I'm going with Happy Feet. This film won the Oscar for Best Animated Film back in 2006. Well, it was directed by George Miller, who's directed Mad Max. As a kid, I only saw this movie once. I only remember watching this movie once with my family when it came out in theaters. Because as a kid, being the huge zoology kid that I was back then, and still up to this day, obviously because I'm interning at a zoo and I've always wanted to be a zookeeper. I honestly, as a kid, I found this movie boring. I don't know, it's just, there's singing penguins, but Humble wants to be a dancer, and all the other penguins shun him for that. As a kid, I was watching it, and I was like, there's just so many, the dialogue, and there's so many scenes in the film that at the time for me as a kid just did not make any sense. And I understand that, there's more existential themes to Happy Feet than people want to realize. There's a whole, environmental message, which, again, we've seen many times in many animated films. That was nothing new even in 2006. And apparently there's a lot of, religious undertones in Happy Feet. I remember watching a movie explaining how Happy Feet is just vehemently anti-religious. I mean, obviously I don't want to talk too much about religion in this video, but I did grow up Catholic. My theology has fluctuated over the years, so to speak. But out of respect for the community that I was raised with, because I had a really positive experience going to church growing up, when movies or music or TV shows or what have you is just vehemently anti-religious, out of respect for the community I was raised with, that doesn't really sit well with me. But again, if it sat well with you, great. It's just, as a kid, again, I would probably like this movie again if I watched it more as an adult. I just couldn't really get into it. Number 5! My spot for this goes to Mother, which came out back in 2017. I know this isn't a film. I know this whole video is a film that I dislike and everyone loves. I'm well aware that not everyone loved this movie by any means. There are a lot of divisive reviews about Mother. Some people loved it, some people hate it. Again, I don't hate any of the movies on this list. I didn't hate Mother by any means. I just found it really boring when I saw it in theaters. And Darren Aronofsky, I haven't watched Black Swan or any of his other films. But as a director, from what I've been told, he has a very acquired taste. He really loves his metaphors and his visual poetry. And when you see the film, it's it's meant to be thrilling, suspenseful. When I saw the trailer for this film back in 2017, I was like, oh, it's going to be a horror movie with Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem. But then when I saw the film, I was like, wow, that trailer is misleading. And again, I can see why the studio chose to produce this, because they know about Darren Aronofsky's film style. It's nope, that's not gonna put butts in seats, so I gotta market it as just a horror film. So the marketing for me was kind of disappointing. And again, there's a lot of biblical environmental metaphors and Mother that I was made aware of after the film was released, which oh, okay, I can see that. That part makes sense. But as a film itself, it was a slow burner, and it kind of launched Jennifer Lawrence's downward spiral for her career, because she hasn't really been in that many very well received films ever since, which is very disappointing because she is the one and only Katniss Everdeen. I love the Hunger Games films. We kind of have this film to blame for her career kind of going down the tube. Alright, my number 4 spot, like, this is a reoccurring theme throughout this video. This is probably a film I would probably like it more if I watched it again now as an adult. I gotta pick Rango for my number 4 spot. I remember my friends and I in middle school, we saw the trailer for this movie and it looked really stupid. Johnny Depp voicing a talking chameleon in an animated film about cowboys. We're just like, what on earth is this? Then we went to see it just to like bash it and just see for ourselves like how bad it is. But then we saw all the positive reviews, and then it won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature for 2011, and like 13-year-old me screamed at the TV. I was like, ah! And my mom and my sister started laughing at me for it because of how stupid this movie is. Again, I really don't get what was so like Best Animated Feature like winner like worthy about this film. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Johnny Depp. He's one of my favorite actors. But like the voice acting, the whole premise of the film is just like, it's so like head scratching to me. Again, I only watched the movie once, and I was being the super like edgy like middle schooler I was at the time. Of course, you see kids movies just like diss it. So again, would probably like it again if I watched it, a second time. Well, we'll see if that ever happens. My number 3 spot. My Disney films growing up were like The Lion King, Mulan, and the Pixar movies like Toy Story and Monsters, Inc. And for whatever reason, I didn't get around to watching Emperor's New Groove until like the end of middle school, like in its entirety. I might have watched Emperor's New Groove when I was a kid, like just by could not remember it. I did watch it, what I do remember watching it, at least as a when I was in middle school, I was like, why do people love this Disney movie so much? People have hailed it as underrated. Personally, I think it's really overrated. Like, Kronk and Yzma are supposed to be like the funniest like Disney villain duo of all time. Yeah, I watched it. I was like, okay, Yzma has some like chuckle-worthy moments, but nothing about these two ever really struck me as hilarious. And again, being the very cynical middle schooler that I was back then, I hated this film for all its historical inaccuracies, so how they portrayed the Incas and the Incan Empire. And it's like, it was way too like modernized. It was way too much of a pop culture reference fest. And it just, as a kid, again, as being the history guy that I've always have been, always will be, it didn't sit with me. But then again, Disney movies have always had a lot of historical inaccuracies and like inaccuracies of fairy tales that their films have been based on. So again, I would probably like this movie more if I watched it again as an adult, but like I did watch it like when I was like mature enough to remember seeing it, and at the time it just really did sit well with me. And again, like Disney films, again, my favorite like Disney films, like childhood movies were like Lilo and Stitch and Lion King and Mulan. So I hold on to those films very dearly. So, but like for whatever reason, maybe I wasn't, warmed up to Emperor's New Groove enough as a kid, therefore I couldn't really enjoy it again when I got older. Perhaps. Number 2! Okay. The worst kind of bad movies are unfunny comedies. Because you have a bad action movie or a bad horror movie. Like if it's an action movie, it doesn't like thrill you, or if there's like a horror movie, it doesn't scare you, or if there's like a bad drama that doesn't really like engage you with the characters or the performances, you can forgive, like you can at least like find, some unintentional hilarity in those movies. But if a comedy doesn't make you laugh, that is like the biggest sin of all, like for bad movies. And that, like, my number 2 spot goes in Napoleon Dynamite for that very reason. I watched this movie, like, my summer going to my freshman year of high school at summer camp, and I was like, I've always grew up hearing people, like, reference this film, like, quote it, being like, oh, eat the food, like, gosh, or, like, the Liger is known for its, like, magical properties, man. It's like, I watched this movie as a 14-year-old, and I was like, I don't get what's so funny about this. Like, seriously, like, what is so funny about Napoleon Dynamite? And as a 24-year-old to this day, I still don't get why people praise this movie as much as they do. Because I still, as a college student and even graduating from CSU, I tell people, yeah, I find Napoleon Dynamite over there. It's like, what? How do you not find Napoleon Dynamite funny? It's so hilarious. I'm like, no, it isn't. Again, maybe I just don't like dry humor, because I have been told that, like, oh, there's other people who don't like this movie because they're not fans of dry humor. Yeah, I mean, I do like some dry humor, but my sense of humor tends to be more, like, funny, like ridiculous, just complete randomness, like sort of humor or things that are unexpected. Again, Napoleon Dynamite as a character, I could not get him as a character. I find him super unlikable and douchey, and was just really just uncharismatic, and he has the same facial expression the entire movie. And the whole vote for Pedro scene is like, I watch this movie, and to this day, I'm still scratching my head as like why people think it's just such a classic. Alright, my number one spot, like I said, if this video gets me a lot of dislikes and hate comments, I wouldn't be surprised. There's the one movie that like I just don't like that everyone else loves. This title goes to The Exorcist. I did go on a whole like horror movie spree, like horror classics, like a few years ago when I was in high school because I wanted to watch all the horror classics, and I've heard about all the praise that The Exorcist gained. Like it's been hailed as like the scariest movie of all time, which this film was released in 1973, I believe. I can totally understand why it was scary at the time. You know, in the early 70s, like people provide barf bags in the theater for how disturbing that this film was. Which again, and again, the child performance in this film was amazing. I will give it props for that. That's one thing I will say that this is the praise that it deserves. But again, 50 plus years later, I don't get why this film has been hailed so much as such a classic as it has been. Because when I watch this movie, again, I only watch it once. So again, like many other films on this list, I would probably like it more if I watched it again now that I'm older. But I just could not get into it. It doesn't even like get to like the scary like demon possession stuff until like the second act of the film. So for the first 45 minutes of the freaking movie, I was just bored. I couldn't get attached to the characters. I couldn't like understand their motivations. And the girl gets possessed by the devil, and then she starts screaming and cursing, and she's doing like the whole spider walk thing. Again, I can understand why that was all super scary and seen as disturbing at the time. But again, all these years later, I just don't think this film has aged very well. And in a weird sense, we kind of have The Exorcist both to praise by both people's standards. But me personally, I kind of blame this film for the onslaught of like super corny, cheap, generic, cliched, lame, forgettable demon possession movies that we get every year ever since. Pray for the devil. Excuse me. Yeah, every year we get these like really super like lame and generic like horror movies about like demon possession because they're cheap to make and they're easy to rake in a quick buck because they don't spend much money producing in the first place. And The Exorcist kind of started all like demon possession flicks. And yeah, just The Exorcist again. This film was it was too much of a slow burner. I found it boring and it was just completely unscary to me. Again, I don't scare very easily by movies in general, like horror movies. My favorite horror movies tend to be more character driven than like jump scare or gore driven. Which this film, like the characters, again, I still think that the child actress, one of the better child actress performances. I do give the film praise for that, but everything else it just didn't work for me, and I don't get why people have hailed it so much over the years. Whew. Alright, well, there you guys have it. These are the 9 movies that I find overrated and the ones I don't really like that everyone else seems to love. What is your... Okay, let me ask you this. I open the floor now to you. I'm not the end-all be-all of any of these movies. Do you agree with me on any of my choices for like videos I've disliked that everyone loves? Or do you disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. What's your, like... movie that you dislike that everyone else loves, or give me like your top 3, top 5, top 10, top 20 movies that you don't like that everyone else loves in the comments down below. Subscribe to my channel, please. My name is TVB9. You guys have a nice night. Stay beastly.